All right, let's get to today's topic. 10 most common communication mistakes to avoid in professional settings. We have some senior person here. We have some people who just joined the career field, but those mistakes are pretty prevalent. We all wanted to know. Like we always do, we always wanted to go back to the fundamental kindergarten level, the definition revisit. What is communication anyway? Communication, according to the dictionary, is the imparting or exchanging of information or news. It has to be exchanged like a ping pong. Feeding, you feed and then you receive. And meanings of sending or receiving information. So that is communication. So this is a chart. You as a communicator, you are sending information and you are also the receiver end. When you send information, you need to encode your information and make sure the message is encoded in a way that your receiver, meaning your audience, is able to decode. If there's noise in this process, then there will be communication compromise or it's not going to be ideal. Like we probably seen this chart many, many times. Ideal communication is like a flow. You make your audience feel like it is within their challenge, within their abilities. And you as a speaker, you also speak with confidence because it's not a hard topic. It's not a hard thing to do. It's within your challenge. It's within an ability. And you all stay in the flow state. So if we make mistakes with communication, that is very, very bad. That is dire. Sometimes it could damage your professional image. It is safe to assume, or it is safe to say, all mistakes in our career could be caused by miscommunication or thereof caused by communication of some sort. You didn't notify coworker or you didn't let your boss know that. Then there's a triage of mistakes or domino effect then cause mistakes or a problem that are beyond repair. The mistake number one, not editing your work. This is very fundamental, very, very fundamental. We do not want to send any document without thorough proofreading or thorough checkup. Emails, once it's sent, you cannot take it back. Spelling or typo, especially tone. A lot of people, especially immigrants, we often give our coworkers a false impression that we are blunt or we are very straightforward or we're not soft enough or sometimes even a little bit awkward. That is because the tone, we only use those textbook kind of sentences, textbook kind of expressions, and it makes us a little bit mechanical and sometimes it's downright awkward. And sometimes in the message, there are careless spelling or typo, or there are very obvious grammatical mistakes. So if you haven't done so, please make sure you have the add-on. I'm not an affiliate of anything. I'm just saying Grammarly Pro, you pay the premium. It's not just Grammarly. I installed the Grammarly Premium, a paid service. Most companies will pay for that too. Yeah. But you do not want to just rely on the spell checkers. You still want to proofread your work. A lot of times, if you want to use a bigger word, use your dictionary. Make dictionary your friend. Always keep an electronic dictionary on your desk. Back in the day, every desk worker has a dictionary on their desk, like a Merriam-Webster dictionary or Dex dictionary. Every doctors used to keep a dictionary. Nowadays, it's all digital. It takes a click of a button, but still, you wanted to use a dictionary. It's not a shame. It's not a shame. And also, keep a list of words or phrases that you find hard to get it right. You know, we oftentimes consciously tend to make the same mistake over and over and over. And you just wanted to remind your RAS, reticular activation system. Those things are the most frequent mistakes I tend to make. I make a list and maybe cross-check that. Every time before you send that document, you check that, okay, did I make that mistake? Because sometimes, believe it or not, you were the last person to see that. You have to use some tool to help you. And also, if you can afford or you have another person to help you, find another person to look over documents before distribution or read it aloud. If you cannot find a person to proofread for you, it always helps to read aloud by yourself, and you will immediately spot the errors, especially something that will go to public. And to become a better communicator, we need to know that our strength and our weakness. As an immigrant here in the United States, English is not your first language. That may not be on your strong side. However, if we know the weakness of the communication, we should spend some time, set some time aside to improve that area. Otherwise, it won't grow or it won't be better miraculously, just all of a sudden by yourself. Mistake number two, it is very, very rude and very inappropriate to deliver bad news by email. We know that a lot of bosses like to do that. They terminate people by email. Some people even break up using email, using text messages. Those are not very professional, even though we see that a lot in our professional settings. Still, it will be better to talk to this person in person, face to face. Even in the COVID time, a Zoom meeting will still be better because words are cold. Words are very cold. Written words are very cold. If we are not deal with those information with care, it could really hurt someone. Remember that movie, Up in the Air? Up in the Air by George Clooney. He used to be the special firing expert. He fires people on behalf of all the corporates in America. So he accumulates millions of miles every year, just travel to different companies to fire people in person. However, because of the technology, they have something, remotely. So his craft are no longer appreciated. Still, I remember he said there's a dignity in that job. There's a dignity. So do it because some of you are managers or bosses or superior. It's better to deliver it in person. And our body language is so important. It has a lot of unspoken element of it. And people can tell and people can actually interpret the cues from our body language. It's way better than the written communication. Actually, there's a TED Talk by Vanessa Van Edwards called You're Contagious. She also has a book, not a similar name, but I forgot the name of the book, but it's very good. You can Google Vanessa Van Edwards. She is considered to be the expert on body language. Yeah, it might be Enchanted. No, it's not Enchanted. Okay, so we all know that even though it's a very bad situation and bad scenario, back in the day when we see the policeman or the U.S. Army, when they have to deliver bad news, sad news of the passing of the soldiers, and they really, when they go to the families, they barely say anything. They just put their hat down in silent, and the family members will pick up the signal immediately. Yeah. And mistake number three, avoid difficult conversations. And we just got the book. Yeah, it's called Captivate. Yes, exactly. That's a very good book, by the way. At some point, you will need to give a negative feedback. It's difficult to give negative feedback. Is very difficult. So we try to avoid that as much as possible. And then that becomes a time bomb. When it explodes, everybody got affected. So like we jokingly said, it's about SHIT sandwich. If you really have to give a negative feedback and make it SHIT sandwich, you got positive feedback, the top bun, and then wrap the negative feedback in the middle, and then get another positive bun. Then people could tolerate or swallow it relatively easier, not using punitive tone or anything like that. We wanted to prepare. It's like an act. When you prepare your script, when you prepare your framework, your structure, using the structure, using the tools, it will really give you the power, give you precision. The tool that I use most is called COIVD, not COVID, COIVD. I will share with you a little later. This tool is called Situation Behavior Impact, SBI. So SBI feedback model is situation. You outline the situation you're referring to so the context is clear and specific. Okay, look, I noticed that you being late a lot recently. From August, the whole month, you've been late for 4 times. This is the situation. We would like to know what is going on. And the behavior, that's the late, that was your tardiness, and behavior, you being late. And impact, we would like to know this kind of tardiness would have some consequence for you and for your team and for the organization, but we are here to help you. So SBI feedback model is a very handy tool. Rather than, hey, I see you are late. What's going on? You want to keep your job? You better show up early. that could drive this person into guilt mode. And we all know that the more guilty they feel, the less likely they're going to show up on time. It's a vicious cycle. Yeah. And what is the coived? Coived is an even more powerful tool. Is C stands for current situation. We just provide a snapshot of the situation, okay? Now, this is the number. This is your sales number. This is your matrix. This is your KPI. But we also see what is the obstacles. When you're trying to report or having a one-on-one meeting with your boss, with your superior, you can say, what is the current situation? Very factual situation. And also you outline the obstacles as well. Okay, I'm encounter some obstacles like, oh, I do not have enough time. I do not have enough resources. I don't know where to find the resources. We never done this before. And the deadline is approaching, blah, 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 blah. We outline the obstacles. And we also, in the I, the meaning ideal situation, we're going to lay out the ideal situation. Okay, what is the ideal situation? That is, by the deadline, we are able to gather all the resources and find all the help we need and finish the job. That is the ideal situation. Then we look at after the obstacles and ideal situations, we'll find, okay, what will be the vehicles? This vehicle sometimes will be the questions you're going to ask for your boss or for the superior. You are going to ask, okay, can you provide advice or can you give me some suggestions? How can we or how can I solve this problem? Can you give us some vehicles, methods, technology, resources, or whatnot? And then finally, that is a deliverable. Okay, if we have this vehicle, then we will be able to deliver by this time and what matrix, what number. So coived is a very good model. I personally use all the time. And I've seen countless managers, high performance people, and C-suite leaders using this in a similar fashion. Yeah. So this is a very good tool to deal with difficult conversations because it's factual. It's based on the real scenario. And also, you want to role play your conversations first, especially those difficult or critical situations. You wanted to role play your conversation. Mistake 4 is not being assertive. Assertiveness and aggressiveness are two different things. Assertiveness is being about stating what you need. However, you still consider other people's needs and wants. Sometimes there's a very vague line between assertiveness and aggression, and people get confused. But assertiveness is altruistic, and aggressiveness is selfish. This is the fundamental difference. You being assertive, meaning you guard your ground and you know what you want. However, you are doing this for the benefits of others. But being aggressive is different. You only care about yourself. You only do this for my benefit, not for other people. So once you know that you do this for my team, for the company, and you have nothing to worry about, I can be certain, I can guard my ground, I can stand firm to be assertive, say no, say to voice your opinions. Like I said, a lot of people are type A in the career field. A lot of people are downright aggressive, but sometimes it could be hard to differentiate those two. But aggressiveness is purely selfish. Mistake 5, reacting, not responding. We know that earlier in our career, it is very easy to be reactive because we could get overly emotional. We get an email, upsets us, and we turn that upset emotion to other people, or we complain a lot, or we frustrated, or even throw fist. It's totally reacting the situation, not responding. This has a lot to do with the emotional intelligence. We all have emotion. We want to interpret, we want to see this emotion, and we also wanted to not let go of the emotion, but we wanted to see the root cause of this emotion and understand this emotion. Then we see why we have this emotion, but not this thing lashing out to other people. If we just react so quickly and let the emotion lashing out, we may get instant gratification, but at the cost of damaging your career in the long run. So we get upset all the time, but it's those who can control themselves are considered to be more professional and more reliable. Always choose how you react. It is a delicate matter. Again, we wanted to talk about this Stoicism. This is not something religious. I believe Stoicism is just an interpretation of the ancient Greek philosophers. It's their interpretation of this specific virtue that actually a lot of the modern athletes, a lot of law enforcement, a lot of the military fighters, they all practice some degree or another Stoicism. It's basically how you interpret things, how you interpret adversaries, how you interpret not so ideal situations, right? Ignore people dominated by their own negative emotions. We all have seen those people around us. You can just ignore it, not be impacted by or influenced by, and master yourself and aim to be virtuous. Learn to move on. And mistakes number 6, not preparing thoroughly. If we're going to have a presentation, if we're going to have a reports or emails, we do not want to wing it. We wanted to carefully rehearse, carefully prepare, and carefully proofread over and over, because people judge you or people read you through those works. And in the preparation of the presentation or your article or your email, we can always use rhetorical triangle and Monroe's motivating sequence. And we actually talked about Monroe's motivating sequence before, and rhetorical triangle. Those are very handy tools. The high-level communicators always have some bag of tricks to use. They're like mechanics. They have a drawer. Open the drawer. They have all kinds of tools, wrenches from different caliber to choose from. So what is rhetorical triangle? This is Aristotle's thousands years old method: ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is basically your authority, your credibility, how the speaker affected the argument. And the pathos is purely emotional. You are going to resonate with your audience, speak to them, make them empathetic, right? And a logos is purely logic. After impacting their emotion, get to their emotional brain, then they'll move to the higher function part of their brain. Then it will justify the logic. So ethos, pathos, logos. It's a little bit abstract, but if you're looking at all the presidential speeches or all those sales letters, they all follow this formula pretty much. Mistake number 7, we use one-size-fits-all approach to communication. Way too generic or automatic messages. This is very common among immigrants, very common among non-English speakers, native English speakers. We need to know different people, different role, different personalities. They have different wants and needs and expectations. We do not use a cookie cutter tone and cookie cutter way of saying. Your written message, your email is just a written form of your verbal communication. They can interpret and they can read your emotion from that. Always audience oriented, and appreciate different learning styles, and understand that especially when you are given a presentation, some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners, and some people probably, a hybrid, but you wanted to cater all their needs. Make sure they understand you. Check in with them from time to time. This is a quote from Ray Dalio. He said clearly in his book, recognize that people are wired very differently. We recognize that. We know people are wired very differently. So don't get upset if you see someone is wired in this way. And this is a very good advice. You want to toss this mental virus. When you toss that, you will be set free. This mental virus is blank is supposed to be blank. So I feel blank. He is supposed to be cautious. And how could he make mistake like this? I'm so angry. Or my son is supposed to be quiet, but he's not, so I feel frustrated, right? So nothing is supposed to be. This supposed to be is your own interpretation. It's your own meaning of things. If you change the meaning, then nothing is supposed to be. Then we are set free. So sometimes if we're at work, if at home, we see something, you see your wife or you see your husband, he is supposed to be taking care of his children, but he is watching TV. But The real story is he is very upset today because he experienced something really, 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 really challenging at work. That's why he is taking a little bit nap in the couch. So we want to lose that mentality. This is very toxic. If we have so many of those wrapping around, we will be bounded by chain for sure. So mistake number 8, not keeping an open mind when meeting new people. We know that America is a melting pot. We know America has all kinds of religious beliefs. America has all kinds of ethnicities, and people are with different ages and different sexual orientations, and people with all kinds of viewpoints. So we don't want to offend anyone. It's totally fine. We can keep our own religious beliefs, or we can keep our own political views, or we can keep our own thoughts on gender or whatnot. But at work, this has to be dealt very delicate, because it's not about political correctness. It's about not offending other people. Freedom of speech actually could hurt some people. Yeah. We want to understand and we want to acknowledge the differences. At work is not the place to stereotype and to judge or label someone who are a little bit different than you. It's not ideal place to seek same point of view, but embrace the fact that there will be differences. So set aside a time to listen when you meet someone new. Yeah, I mean, that's why we try to avoid different, topics at work. Politics is generally encouraged not to talk about it, and religion is generally encouraged not to talk about it. Yeah, because you never know who you're going to offend, right? And mistake 9, assuming that your message has been understood. Assumption is the number one killer for understanding. If we always assume other people understand us, then we're going to be in a twilight zone or in a fairy tale. We always want to take time to check that people have understand your message. That's why we wanted to have, every time we have a meeting on monthly basis or on weekly basis, or even after the meeting, we wanted to write a little follow-up email to make sure we understand each other, we are on the same page, especially for some complicated projects, for some complicated issues. If this person was never included in the conversation, you only talk to A, B, and C, how can you assume that D knows what's going on there, right? So we cannot make that an assumption. We always want to make sure everybody is on the same page. And we wanted to use open questions, start with how, why, and what. Those questions will encourage reflection, and those questions will encourage the feedback, and sometimes mostly candid feedback from your audience. And remember, communication is about interaction, it's a two-way thing. Mistake number 9, sometimes we accidentally violating other people's privacy. This happens a lot. And we call it, in the Chinese culture, we call it societal suicide. Especially in the Chinese culture, people at work, they have the WeChat group, right? They have WeChat group, and they send a screenshot to his confidant, basically saying his boss is idiot, but he sent that to the wrong group. Okay, sent to the group that the boss was there, or send some very intimate pictures, just to realize 30 minutes later, I was the wrong group. Yeah. So we wanted to double check. Sensitive email or sensitive WhatsApp messages, sensitive instant messages were sent to the correct person. And before you send any attachment, any screenshot, double check, triple check. Sometimes those things could even give you legal trouble. Yeah. Embarrassment or confusion or even termination of the job. That's why it is highly recommended, if you want to write an email, write it on a blank Word document, and then do not just use the reply button or reply all, because accidentally you could click on send, and before you know it, it's already in their mailbox. You cannot retrieve it back. And if you are sending a document, make sure no tracked changes or comments can be found. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like, in the corporations, those legal department and compliance department, they're a little bit like paranoid, but I think they have very solid suspicion. So it's generally a good thing to follow their instructions in terms of the compliance. So everyone makes communication mistakes from time to time. We sometimes we make stupid and silly mistakes, especially earlier in our career. But if you want to protect your reputation, you want to avoid those common errors. And remember, communication, especially good communication, it's all about your audience. It's not about you. Your job is to make your audience happy. Your job is to make your audience understand. Always, always think about your audience and prepare, prepare, prepare. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Communication is a two-way process, like a ping pong game. Be ready for questions and listen to what your audience has to say. Never dominate the conversation unless you are in the teacher role, unless you are in the given a presentation that you have a designated time to. But it's in a conversation, make sure it's a two-way street, not a monologue. It's a dialogue. Maybe 3, 4, 5 sentences, use a social cue, your turn. And after you have a 3, 4 sentences, okay, my turn. It's fundamental, but we tend to forget. All right. Thank you.